Secretary General said that climate change is the mother of all stealth taxes paid by everyday people and vulnerable countries and communities. Meanwhile, the godfathers of climate change, the fossil fuel industry, rake in record profits and feast off trillions in taxpayer-funded subsidies. I mean, that's a speech in itself. That is the whole truth in itself, basically.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Climate Emergency Forum. My name is Regina, and I'm going to be your host as we discuss a moment of truth on climate change. This, of course, some of you may recognize as the title to Secretary General António Guterres' speech last week. He gave the speech on World Environment Day in New York City at the American Museum of Natural History. He opened by saying, "We are playing Russian roulette with our planet." He also said that we need an exit ramp off the highway to climate hell. I have to tell you that I truly respect Secretary General Guterres' words, which he does not mince. It was not too long ago when he also referred to us walking through climate hell. There are very few people who will speak this way regarding the climate. Mind you, he has to be somewhat of a cheerleader in this respect, as he, does lead over 193 nations and wants them all to do whatever is necessary to bring about a turn of events, that is, drawing down climate of the atmosphere. But even in this, he has to be honest. He has to be honest that on World Environment Day, he spoke in New York City that was the hottest May ever recorded in the history of this planet since Homo sapiens have occupied it. This, of course, followed 12 straight months of the hottest months ever. And it's just been incredibly hot in places all over the world. I mean, India is facing scorching heat. We have to remember that there are people who are homeless, living on the streets of India, pavement absorbing the heat and not cooling off during the night, which leads to many untold deaths of heat stroke. It is so hot that in Mexico, almost 140 howler monkeys fell dead out of the trees. It is just frightening. It is frighteningly hot. Secretary General said that we are at a moment of truth. And I like that he pointed out that, quote, "It is a travesty of climate justice that those who are least responsible for the crisis are the hottest hit." And he named those as the poorest people, those most vulnerable countries, and I already mentioned India, many countries in Latin America, Southeast Asia. He mentioned indigenous peoples, women and girls. Now, a lot of people may say, women and girls, what about men and boys? You have to understand that women and girls in many parts of the world are responsible for obtaining water for the entirety of their family. Boys don't do this, men don't do this. It is women. When there is less water, these women and girls have to travel farther out to get the water. That means for young girls, school is largely not an option. It also means that many of these females can be subjected to going so far away from home, rape and other assaults by men who find them alone. So it is a terrible situation. He did not mention, and I will mention, the other living beings that we share this planet with, or that I like to say that are unfortunate enough to have us on their planet. We don't even know how many of them are dying and suffering. I told you about the howler monkeys. We know about I think it was over 1 billion animals who died during the bushfires in Australia in 2020, we can't count the number of animals that are dying in the ocean. But no doubt, with the incredible heating of the ocean, this too is happening. The horrible fact is that the richest 1% of humanity emits as much carbon dioxide as 2/3 of humanity. 1% versus 2/3. Calculate that. It's a horrifying thing. Antonio Guterres said that our planet is trying to tell us something, but we don't seem to be listening. I am really fortunate to be spending this show with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Peter Carter. I have many things that I want to pull out from Secretary General's speech, but I also want to hear, Peter, what was it that struck you in this speech? I'm really, really curious to hear.
Well, he was, as you say, Regina, he was on his usual forthright, honest form. He's unfortunately in my view, one of the very few climate heroes in the world, but he certainly is a climate hero. And it's great that, as you say, he's Secretary of the United Nations. He never misses an opportunity to communicate the truth about climate change to the world. He never does. So this is exactly what one would have expected from him. I did write down the choicest of quotes from this speech, so I wanted to start with that, which is this. The media sort of referred to it, but they didn't give the full quote. Secretary General said that climate change is the mother of all stealth taxes paid by everyday people and vulnerable countries and communities. And this is the bit I really like. Meanwhile, the godfathers of climate change, the fossil fuel industry, rake in record profits and feast off trillions in taxpayer-funded subsidies. I mean, that's a speech in itself. That is the whole truth in itself, basically. Secretary General has a science committee of about 10 climate experts. So he's definitely kept well up to date. There's no question about that. And yeah, I did want to say something about Mexico and India as well. The media is covering that pretty well. It's still hot as Hades in northern India. And the animal rescue groups are picking up birds off the street who have fallen out of the sky with the heat. They're taking them into their offices and they're resuscitating them with little air conditioners, right? This is the situation that we're already in. My God, we have to think number one of our children. We're starting to do that, but it is all the children, by the way, in the world. And they're all vulnerable, most vulnerable to every single impact of climate change. Everyone, that's the kids in the world. And we also, I really, really love how, Regina, you remember to improve, to include our other kin, our other fellow brethren that we share this planet with. They're certainly as important as we are. Oh my God, yeah. I was interested that Secretary General mentioned that in COP28, the countries, all the countries, had committed to working towards the goal of 1.5 degrees C. So I sort of reminded myself, I took a look again at what was agreed in COP28, and actually it was way more interesting than I sort of realized. Before I do that, though, I want to give the present terrible, painful truth, which has appeared since Guterres' speech was written. So there are two big reports that we've had out this month. One of them was the Piers Anthony report. He has an international team, a big, big team, who do updates now every year, updating the IPCC science. And again, they found that global warming is increasing presently at an unprecedented rate and, quote, faster than ever before. That's global warming. And then just a few days ago, we had the report from NOAA, the American National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, and they gave a stunning report, which didn't surprise me because I do follow this, on the situation with regards to atmospheric 2 concentration. And they, quote, said the same thing. Atmospheric CO2 is increasing faster than ever. What NOAA described was that in May is the peak of the atmospheric CO2, and then it starts going down again. And the May peak this year to the May peak last year and another year before was a record. It never increased as much. It's never increased as fast. But the other thing that they mentioned is the past 4 months of this year is the fastest first 4 month atmospheric CO2 increase ever. So it's not at all surprising that global warming is accelerating. And it's not at all surprising that it's increasing faster than ever, because this is what atmospheric CO2 is doing. And that is due to the fossil fuel industry, who have no intention whatsoever, ever, to start reducing their extraction and emissions of fossil fuels and carbon dioxide, and of course, methane as well as that. A reminder on the COP28 then, the countries acknowledged, recognized, and agreed this time to the full contents of the last IPCC assessment. They've never done this before. You may remember a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, they actually fought the IPCC assessment being included into the conference. They agreed that emissions for 1.5 degrees C and 2 degrees C have to peak and then decline 2020. Now, that 2020 has been the limit for the past 20 years, by the way. So it's taken a long time to get to this. And at the very latest, I'm quoting from COP28 now, before 2025. So this, of course, is the now that I've been repeating as often as I possibly can. And again, that's 2 degrees C now. We know that 1.5 degrees C, as Hansen said, is long gone. But now we're trying to save the future with 2 degrees C. Oh, my God. The other thing about the quote is they say immediate action. So we're looking at immediate emissions declines with quote from COP28 and the IPCC immediate action. So obviously the first immediate action is to cancel, stop all the fossil fuel subsidies. It's clear from the text language of the COP28 that they don't intend to do that. There should be an absolute global aggressive campaign to force governments to stop. This is I keep on saying it, but I have to. This is the greatest crime, the greatest evil ever. I mean, my God, as the Secretary General put it, they're feasting off the profits that they're making from us giving them through our governments a whole ton of money. $7 trillion, right? It's up to $7 trillion. It's been increasing for the past 10 years. The fossil fuel subsidies our governments are giving to the fossil fuel industry has been increasing for the past 10 years.
Yeah, Peter, I like what you're saying about the 1.5. I know that Secretary General can't say, hey, game over, but really, he came as close as anyone could ever say about that. He said that 1.5 degrees warming is hanging by a thread. Hanging by a thread. Of course, it was generous of him to say, but he followed that up by saying that we're spewing out 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year. And of course, global emissions need to fall 9% every year up until 2030 to keep 1.5 alive. They need to fall, okay? And he said that last year they rose a percentage. So we're going in the exact opposite direction. And of course, if we continue, which I see no other trajectory for humanity, 1.5 is essentially, can we say, on life support? It's really, really a terrible situation. He also said that there's a 50-50 chance, 50-50, that the average temperature in the next 5 years will be above 1.5 degrees industrial average. That's 50-50, 1 out of 2 chance. It's really, really a bad situation. That one of the things that I found really touching, I love the way he speaks. I love the facts that he spews, if you will. In modern parlance, we could say he's spitting facts, and he is, but he's also so very poetic. He's very poetic. And he said that humanity is just one small blip of the Earth's history. And he described the dinosaurs and how they went extinct when the meteor hit the planet. And he said that we are like that meteor, that one small blip that is us. We are having an outsized effect, and we are the meteor that is driving mass extinction on this planet. He said that we are in danger, but he also said that we are the danger. He said that we are also the solution. And the thing is, we have to be the solution, because if we're not the solution, then we are just, there's no other way to say it, we're mass murderers. It's really, really a terrible thing to contend with. And I, like you, appreciate that he spoke about the fossil fuel industry and how we're giving them quadrillions in subsidies, and in turn, they're thanking us by killing us. There's no other way to say it. The World Health Organization has already said that over 8 million people die every year due to polluted air. And of course, they're speaking about particulate matter that is in the air due to fossil fuels. And if that's not bad enough, we now get to contend with the microplastics, which, of course, plastics is another boon to the fossil fuel industry, because plastics are made of fossil fuels. And everything we're now learning that's made of plastic sheds. Just like our skin sheds skin cells, plastic sheds as well. The plastic is in the very air that we breathe. Plastic has been found in everything that we drink, from water to beer to baby's breast milk. For God's sake, you can't nurse your own child without poisoning a child. And where are the people in the streets up in arms? For God's sakes, this is horrifying. Even nanoplastic particles have been found in the brain. So really, I don't know any other way to look at it. It's really, really difficult to contend with being a member of Homo sapiens, the people, the species involved in causing so much chaos in the world. One of the things that he said is that the extreme events that we're experiencing, flooding all over the place, droughts all over the place, that these climate chaos events are piling up one after the other. It's getting to the point where we really don't have the opportunity, Peter, to recover from these events. And as soon as one thing ends, another thing begins somewhere else. We're wrecking sustainable development. We're forcing people from their homes. The very idea of peace and security, that's being depleted, Peter, because of this chaos. You know, when you have a fire here, a fire here, a fire there, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically, and all you're doing is putting out fires, eventually everything is going to burn. I thought of you when I was listening to that speech, Peter, because I know how passionate you are about fossil fuels and the fossil fuel industry. And I really did appreciate Mr. Guterres speaking about that. Was there anything else that struck you in his speech, Peter?
Oh, yeah, numbers. It's numbers, I know. But 2 degrees C, there isn't anything after 2 degrees C. I know that scientists, and it's quite proper, that they research 3 degrees C, 4 degrees C, 5 degrees C. Yeah, that's fine. But 2 degrees C is the point of no return. This was recognized by the EU, my God, back in the 1990s, right? That's why they chose 2 degrees C. Also, at 2 degrees C, in the sixth assessment of the IPCC, all crops in all food producing regions are in decline, right? So 2 degrees C is the absolute limit, absolute limit. And it's going to be horrible, as you say. It's going to get a lot worse from now. But the other numbers that's really crucially important that the COP28, all the countries agreed on, is the IPCC numbers that greenhouse gas emissions, global greenhouse gas emissions, have to decline. And this was your percentage, Regina, that Secretary General quoted. So it's a 43% decline by 2030. So to avoid 2 degrees planetary catastrophes, the global economy fossil fuel corporations, they're the we that are doing all this. They're the ultimate arch criminals, as mother or stealth taxes, as the Secretary General put it. So we got to do that, right? And it's no good saying we can't do that. The one thing about human beings in a modern human society that we proved is we can do anything that we put our mind to. Even the most insane things that we can put our mind to, we do. Mission impossible, we can do. So I never like, and I've never liked people, and they've said it for years, oh, that's unfeasible. Well, it can't be unfeasible, and it's not. And a reduction of 60% of global emissions by 2035. I was pleasantly shocked because I didn't appreciate that at COP28, all the countries in the world did agree to this. They did agree that this is what they have to do. So that actually it's true. It was a huge step forward. That was a huge achievement in COP28. So really what has to happen, of course, is that we have to have more and more protests, right? Obviously, peaceful protests. And we have to see large numbers. Now, we're not seeing large numbers again because of our governments who are cracking down. Our governments are getting more and more criminal as time goes by, is basically what's happening. So these young protesters who understand, that their future is a lot more than in question, they're doing peaceful protests, they're being arrested, they're being criminalized, right? And they're giving harsh sentences. So we have to support that as much as we possibly can, because it's their future. And they are protesting on behalf of my generation, who is responsible, of course, mainly responsible for the situation that they're in. Although the arch enemy, the arch villain is the world economy. It's the world economy that's doing this, how it's designed. And we got to force a change on that. So I guess I would end there. And I mean, a lot of people have tried to get the world economy, the perverse world economy, put right as just common sense. So many articles or books have been written, but it's absolutely time to make it happen.
Thanks, Peter. I agree with you so much. It's time to make it happen because the economy as we have it now, it is simply not sustainable. It's built on slash and burn ways of thinking. And, you mentioned the young people protesting. I mean, the ultimate irony to me is that the people who are protesting the fossil fuel industry, the people who are protesting in the name of climate change and fighting for climate justice, those are the ones being criminalized, as you said, and the ones who are inflicting the damage are not. It is so crazy. So we're living an upside down world. And another thing that you said that I agree 100%, as Secretary General said, we are the problem, but we are also the solution. We have to be. One of the most amazing things that we have is the human mind. It's an amazing, amazing feat of evolution, and we can do so much. We are so lucky to have the capabilities that are given to us. And I can't stand to see it being wasted on, well, I hate to say it, we're on social media now, but when people, spend their time on Instagram or this is an educational video on YouTube, but watching silly videos on TikTok and things like that, it's like, no, we have to nurture our minds, our brains, nourish our souls and our relationships with each other and the natural world. And once we do that, nothing can stop us in making this about-face change to bringing peace, unanimity to the world for all living beings who inhabit this earth. And it is my great hope that this is something that we will choose to do because it's a choice. And I want to say, and I know I say it every time, but to our viewers, you are making that choice every time you tune into the Climate Emergency Forum, every time you learn right alongside with us, you are making the choice for change, the change for good. And we thank you for that because that is why we're here. doing this every week, producing a new show. A lot of work goes into it, but we care, and we care about you, our audience. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, because believe it or not, that makes a difference on the algorithm. It makes a difference on how many people will see our videos. Share the videos. That also goes into account. YouTube will see that and say, hey, these people at Climate Emergency Forum, we need to give them a boost. And they do give people boosts, not always the right ones. We would like to think that we are the right people and the right channel that should be higher up in the rankings. So we really, really thank you for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing. And one other thing I want to encourage you to do, we're going to put the link to the Secretary General's speech, and we really, really want you to watch that. I found it to be inspiring, informative, educational, hopeful, and I want to impart that to you. And after you watch it, share with us your thoughts. What did you learn? What do you think that the Secretary General got right? What would you add? You saw that I added the part about the animals, right? What would you add to a speech? We would really love to hear it, and let's start a conversation. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next time at the Climate Emergency Forum.